Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. So something that I haven't talked about in my channel yet is how I graduated in 2.5 years from college. I did this because I wanted to save a lot of money because tuition was very high at my school. And so I'm going to kind of walk you through the step-by-step process of how I thought through this, the pros and cons, what I took classes wise, what the result was on my GPA, and all sorts of things like that. This is actually a blog post that I wrote 2 years ago now, and I'm just gonna kind of walk you through it and explain what my thought process was. And hopefully, this is helpful for you to figure out how you could graduate early if you wanted to from college, whether it's the right decision for you, and what sorts of I guess hacks there would be for you to figure out how to do this effectively and appropriately. This is actually something that I had no idea was possible when I was going into college. I didn't know that students could graduate early. And one time during lunch in my first semester of college, I heard somebody say that they wanted to graduate in 3.5 years. And then I asked, do you have to pay money for the semester that you're not here? And they said, no, no, you don't have to pay money for the semester that you're not here. And some people who don't live in the housing, on-campus housing, don't have to pay for on-campus housing for the remaining semester either. And so I was like, okay, maybe I'll graduate in 3.5 years as well. And then I was like, maybe I can graduate in 3 years. And then I was like, I'm kind of rethinking this. And if I take enough credits in my classes and in college, then I might be able to graduate in 2.5 years. And so tuition at my school was like $70,000. Housing was another 10, 15 with food. And so it ended up saving quite a bit of money. And so that's why I'm making this video so that, you can see if that's an option for you. And this is how I did it. So I went to WashU. I'm there for med school now. And I graduated in 5 semesters rather than 8. And because of COVID-19, I was also home after my fifth semester of college. So I essentially um, in my fourth semester of college, COVID happened, and so half of my fourth semester and all of my fifth semester were at home, and so my cost of living was also kind of cut quite a bit too. And there was no really established way to graduate early. It's not there's a fast path to do it. You just kind of have to take an overload of credits every semester. So that's one. Two, you kind of have to contact academic advisors, a mentor at your school, and ask them how you can meet the graduation requirements in a condensed amount of time. And then three, you kind of have to email some of your teachers and ask them if you can take the class that they're offering out of order, or if the class that you need to graduate is already full, you can ask them if they can add you to their class. And basically it's just a lot of emails to ask people how you can meet all the requirements for graduation, and how they might be able to accommodate you so that you can follow your plan. So basically, there was a lot of emails, there's a lot of classes, there's a lot of stress, but I was able to graduate in a very early timetable, and I want to show you how I did that. So I'll begin with the pros and cons of kind of an early graduation, why you might want to do it, why you might not want to do it, who might want to do it, and who might not want to do it. So the pro, obviously, and the biggest pro, is that I saved a lot of money. So it was cost of tuition, room, board, and remaining costs were like between $75,000 and $80,000 a year. And you know, if if uh, if you're going to like a private out-of-state school, and you're not getting need or merit-based scholarships, then it's pretty expensive to go to college. And so um, even though I had gotten a lot of full ride offers and a lot of merit-based discounts for a lot of schools, I still chose the 8-year medical program at Washington University because it's a top 10 ranked med school. Um, and the other pro is that during my time off, I actually got to build up my med school application. I was trying a lot of things in business because I wanted to try to make money and save up tuition for med school as well. I trained as a behavioral technician to take care of children with autism. I conducted a research project. I blogged. I made YouTube videos. I taught students MCAT. I wrote a lot. I started writing a book that just fell off. But the time gave me a lot of opportunities to kind of try things out that I had not tried in college. And so I think it was actually kind of nice to have this year of not exactly a break, but a year to try things that I had not tried before, and not have such a high cost to try those things, to try these experiments. Okay, the cons. So my workload was really, really high, and I'd say that there's many times in undergrad that I thought it was actually a little bit more difficult than med school, just because I was taking so many credits all the time, and I still had to focus on my GPA because I had a requirement to get a 3.8 or above for my program, and yeah, it was definitely pretty difficult. I ended up getting a 4.0, so I did do really well GPA wise, but it was really difficult to kind of maintain that, and it would have been a lot easier if I was taking like a normal 15 credits per semester. On average, I was taking 7 classes per semester. So normally students take 4 or 5 classes, but 7 classes means that I would have 6 finals usually, back to back a lot of times within the span of 3 or 4 days. So it was a lot of studying. Some days I had to wake up at 4 to study for an exam. It was pretty hectic. I would also take some classes really early in my track. So an example of this is that I took biochemistry without having completed biology. I took physics 2 before I took physics 1. And I had to kind of do all these things because, if physics 2 was offered in the spring semester and physics 1 was offered in the fall semester, I kind of had to take them reverse order so that I would be able to take the advanced classes later on. And so that's kind of um, some of the challenges that I was facing, and maybe some challenges that you might face if you're choosing to graduate early. And then a lot of classes that were really, really time intensive were classes that had a lab associated with them. So general biology had a lab class associated with, general chemistry had a lab class associated with, physics had a lab class associated with it. A class like biochem is 4 credits long, and that's a lot of work. And I was taking all 4 of these classes at the same time. And usually, if you talk to pre-meds, they'll only encourage you to take like 2, max 3 science classes at a time. But taking 4 that were really, really heavy classes was definitely a pretty big time commitment on my side. The other thing is that my extracurriculars were a little bit on the weaker side. I didn't really have much time to do research. I spent the summer after my freshman year taking organic chemistry at my local college. So that summer was also kind of taken because rather than doing research or shadowing or volunteering clinically, I kind of spent all my time studying for Orgo and completing both semesters of Orgo during that summer. And so it was a little bit difficult, a little bit more difficult to meet the expected requirements for pre-med extracurriculars. Even so, I still spent weekends doing volunteer efforts. I volunteered at a suicide helpline. I taught children in low income areas. I volunteered at a domestic violence shelter and more. It was just a lot to juggle all at the same time. Usually, I would do these kinds of volunteer events in the evening, afternoon, like 6:30, 7 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then on all day Saturday, I was volunteering. So, a lot of my free time was kind of taken with this. Um, I think the reason why I was able to juggle this busy of a schedule is kind of because a lot of the classes that I had taken in the first year of college, I kind of already studied in high school to an extent. So I'd taken a lot of APs in high school, which made, physics 1 and 2, biology, and even biochemistry not as difficult as it was for people who were looking at that curriculum for the first time. So I kind of had a more fortunate college experience in that my high school experience had prepared me really well and was pretty rigorous in that aspect. So I guess that's kind of part of the reason I was able to juggle this busy schedule. But again, what I made up in taking more classes, I kind of lacked in doing some research or shadowing that I probably could have if I wasn't doing such an intense class schedule. Another thing is obviously I didn't have the traditional 4 year college experience. I didn't go out as much as people. I still had fun, but I definitely didn't go out as much as I should have during college. And I still had a great time, but I don't think that that was something that I had really prioritized or gotten out of my experience. I still had a really great time in college. I also didn't really mind that I didn't get the traditional 4 year college experience. I would have mind if I went into corporate or got a job after my college, but I'm still in med school, so I have a lot of years in med school left, and so it's kind of more school all the time, and I'm really enjoying med school a lot with all my friends, so I don't think it was a big trade-off in terms of not getting the 4 year education. Okay, so now you know all the pros and cons. I want to walk you through exactly how I did it with kind of the breakdown of the unit requirements um, and like the specific requirements at my school. And I just want to preface this by saying that I really, really loved WashU. It was a great, great undergraduate experience. I had a great time, lots of amazing teachers. My mentor and professor, or my mentor and my pre-med advisor was absolutely fantastic. I think my favorite teacher of my entire life was at that school as an English professor. All my friends were great. So this was a really, really great university. And if you're considering going there, it's just a fantastic place to be. Um, Okay, so the first requirement to graduate from WashU Arts and Sciences, which is what I was doing, is to complete 120 credits, 90 of which have to be in the Arts and Sciences school, and 30 of which have to be at the advanced upper level. So there would be 100 level classes, 200 level classes, 300, 400, and 500 level classes. 300, 400, and 500 level classes are all advanced. They're pretty difficult. And 30 out of 120 of my credits had to be from this. Most classes were 3 units. This kind of meant that it was, I think the breakdown that they said is any 3 unit class had 9 hours outside of class that you were expected to study every week. Um, I should have come in with 40 credits from high schools because I'd taken a lot of AP exams, I think 12 AP exams. But WashU actually limits the number of units you can come up with, which means that I only came with 15 units from high school instead of 40. And so that means that at the start of my college experience, I had 1 semester of units finished. And these units did not count toward those 90 that have to be in the arts and sciences. So these units, these 15, kind of counted to this 120 number, but it didn't count for this 30 or it didn't count for this 90. So I guess my running total so far is 15. And I'm going to scroll down, but this is kind of the units requirement, which I just mentioned. Um, and then there's also core skills that I have to take. So I have to take 1 class from each of these categories. And I'll go into this later, but I have to take 1 writing class, 1 applied numeracy class, 1 writing intensive class, and 1 social contrast class. Okay, I also have to take 3 or 4 classes from each of these categories: science or math, social and behavioral science, humanities, and language and cultural diversities. So at least 3 classes from each of these for 9 credits total within each of them. Okay. Finally, I need integrations. I need to get 2 integrations. I need to get at least 3 integrations within 2 of these buckets, and I'll go into that also. So I needed to get, and again, this is WashU specific. Each school has its kind of own requirements, but it's useful to kind of know what my experience was because you're going to have a better idea of what you have to look for and your thought process as well. But I have to get 3 integrations within 2 of these. So the integrations that I ended up getting, as just a spoiler alert, I guess, is I got a major, and I got a major in biology. I got a minor in anthropology, and I did an ampersand program. That ampersand program was connected to my minor in anthropology, and that was called medicine and society. I actually got 4 integrations. One of them was in, I think it was in psychology or something, but I didn't even know that I had gotten that integration. So that's something I realized after I had finished my 5 semesters. Okay. Um, Finally, I needed a major. So again, my major is in biology, my minor is in anthropology. I needed, I could not take any more than 21 credits. If I did take, then every single extra credit I would take, I have to spend $2,000. So it was pretty expensive to take any additional unit past 21. The traditional college workload is 15 units per semester. Sometimes people take more, sometimes people take less, but that's kind of the number that they say is the traditional workload. The major consists of nothing less than 18 units of coursework numbered 300 or above. So if you wanted to get a major in something, you have to take at least 6 advanced classes. Remember, those advanced classes are 300, 400, or 500 level classes. So my first semester going into college, I took 18 credits, 18 units. This was in, let me zoom in a little bit. This was in chemistry, in chemistry laboratory. This was a two credit class. In statistics, in calculus, calculus 3. In medicine preparation, this is kind of a pretty interesting class that told you everything that medicine is about, and this was a pass-fail class. Then the ampersand program, this was a class that kind of taught you about global health and medicine. It was a really interesting class, and then class in psychology. Um, this was actually a night class that I took, and so overall this was 18 units. And so I had 15 from high school and 18 for the first semester. So far we're at 33. The next semester I took 19 units, and this semester was definitely a little bit busier than the first semester. So I took chemistry 2, chem laboratory 2. I took a class called writing identity, which I absolutely loved. It was a great class. I took physics 2. So this is the place where I took physics 2 before taking physics 1 because it was offered in the spring and I kind of wanted to take physics 2. I took biology 1, and then I took the second semester of that ampersand program, which is the global health and medicine class. Out of this, I'd say that um, chemistry and chemistry lab was a very difficult class. Physics was a difficult class, and biology was a difficult class. So it was definitely difficult to take all three of these classes together. Um, okay. Then, so now I have 15 from high school, 18 from my first semester, and 19 from my second semester. As you can see, I was still maintaining really good grades. So I got all A's here, and all A's here. So I was still maintaining a 4.0 GPA throughout. Then that summer, I decided to take organic chemistry and organic chemistry laboratory at my local college. And this course was actually 10 units at George Mason at the local college, but it was only 8 units at WashU. So WashU gave me 8 units for this. And so now, after the summer, I had 15 from high school, 18 from my first semester, 19 from my second semester, and 8 from the summer. Okay, so now after the first year plus the first year summer, I had 60 units, which means that technically I had finished half of my college experience in just the first year. And so now this was kind of the point that I realized like, oh, I could actually graduate in 2.5 years because until this point, I wasn't really trying to graduate that early. I was kind of hoping to graduate in 3.5 years or something, but this is the point where I was like, oh, I can graduate in 2.5 years. And so this is when I decided that I would do that. And so here is where I started to really, really ramp up things. And academically, this was definitely the most difficult semester that I had. It was a it was a really, really difficult semester for me, especially because I had started taking some leadership positions in some of my clubs. I was volunteering at a domestic violence shelter and playing with a lot of the kids there, and I had become team leader for that. I had taken like a really intense training at suicide helpline, and so I was starting to take shifts there. And so this was a pretty brutal semester for me. It was a lot of studying, but I had a lot of fun. I think the hardest class out of all of these was this one class called Principles of Human Anatomy and Development. That was a really, really difficult class for me. And I got like a 60% or 70% on that first exam, and it was pretty difficult. I ended up getting an A in it because I just kind of had to go to office hours and study as much as possible. This was a really difficult semester for me, and you know, uh, I was at many times considering changing some of these to pass fail rather than credit, which is a really great opportunity that you'll have in college. Is that you can change any class you want to pass and fail rather than credits, and you can do that kind of midway through the semester. Okay, so if you're keeping track, I had 15 from high school, 18 in my first semester, 19 in my second semester, 8 over the summer, and now 21. This was a 21 credit schedule, and this was kind of my first 21 credit um, schedule, and it was pretty brutal. Okay, so now my second semester of the second year, I took a lot more of these kind of humanities classes that fulfilled a lot of my requirements, and I actually really liked a lot of these humanities classes. This class, argumentation, was my favorite class that I've ever taken. It was a really great writing class, and I think my favorite class at WashU. It doesn't hurt that my professor was one of the best professors I've ever had. He was a really, really cool guy. Retired after I finished that year, but he was a really, really awesome professor. So I learned a lot about writing from this class. Present moral problems, kind of a philosophy class. Social theory was a class that I took for preparing for the sociology section of the MCAT. Physiological control systems was a very difficult class that I took. Cell biology was also a very difficult class that I took. Um, Introduction to archaeology was actually surprisingly very difficult, but something that I had to take for my anthropology minor. And then pushing daisies, anthropology of death and dying. I thought would be a pretty easy class. It wasn't too difficult, but it was actually it was really, really heavy material for me, and so it definitely kind of required a lot of emotional energy. Um, I think that this semester itself, even though it's 20 credits, wasn't as difficult as the previous semester where I was taking 21 credits. The thing that made the semester really difficult is at the same time that I was doing this semester, I was also studying for the MCAT, pretty hardcore. And so studying for the MCAT and also taking this level of course load was really difficult for me. Fortunately, this class kind of overlapped with some of the things I was learning in the MCAT. This class also kind of overlapped a little bit with things I was learning in the MCAT. And then because of COVID, we were actually allowed to change some of our classes to pass and fail, and it didn't really hurt our graduation requirements or anything like that. So I ended up changing these three classes to pass fail, and it made my schedule a lot easier. And so now I kind of only had the humanities classes where I had to take um, where I had to like really focus on my grades. And that's what you can see here is I really only had A's in the humanities classes, and the other three, heavy material memorization classes were changed to pass fail. Um, I was studying a lot for the MCAT during this time, and I ended up taking the MCAT the summer after this semester. Whew, all right. Uh, okay, so I took the MCAT between after this and during the summer around August or September. So that was kind of a pretty important exam for me. I ended up doing really well, and in another video, I talk about how I got 100th percentile on the MCAT. But then I decided that during this fall 2020 semester, where everything was kind of up in the air, and like we didn't really know what classes would be offered or anything like that, and I was kind of doing really well on my running total. So all I had to do was, I think another 19 credits or 18 credits in order to graduate. So I was doing really well in terms of being able to graduate within 2.5 years. And so I decided to take a leave of absence. I did a lot of medical related training. I prepared for my position as an MCAT tutor. I did a lot of remote research. Um, I decided that I would finish my last semester during the spring because maybe I could go back in person or I could just continue in online teaching. But since a lot of the things were kind of being figured out, I decided that I would do my remaining lessons in the spring. So in the spring 2021 semester, I took 19 credits again. One of these was a research course because I was doing a research project with the English professor that I had mentioned over here, the argumentation class. I decided to do research with that professor. And so um, this actually counted as 3 credits, which was pretty awesome. Um, I took uh, I took 2 science classes that fulfilled my upper level biology requirements. So those science classes were microbiology laboratory and disease ecology, both pretty difficult classes, but both pretty valuable and interesting for medical school. I also took a really fascinating class, 2 really fascinating classes. One was called Positive Psychology, Science of Happiness, and another was called Writing Episodic Television. This was kind of a class on how to write scripts for TV shows, and this was a class on how to be happier. And I really liked both of these classes. The last thing that I was doing, so a couple of other extracurriculars I was doing. I was tutoring 2 MCAT courses for WashU undergraduate and graduate students, and I was doing this through the WashU school, and I was getting paid as a tutor. And I actually was tutoring over like 24 people at that time. I was also privately tutoring a couple of people. So it was a really great practice for me to tutor MCAT, especially just because I had taken the MCAT the semester before. So I was really well prepared for kind of learning all the science material again. I was working as a caretaker for a boy with autism, and I was doing some work in the hospital. Whew. All right, so my running total is now 120 credits. I hit that number exactly. I went in May for my graduation, and I felt really fortunate to have my diploma. Overall, every college differs in their policies. Some schools give a lot of AP credits to their students, and so it's not too difficult to graduate early. And uh, it's definitely something you should consider is kind of looking at all the requirements at your school and figuring out what are the necessary steps to graduate early if you do decide to graduate early, and kind of figure out if the stress is worth it for you. I really hope this was a helpful video. I know it's kind of long, but kind of wanted to make it as comprehensive as possible. Really appreciate your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.